So the difference between 100K and 1.3 million, that is life changing. Like that is, okay, I have this pretty awesome life or this out of this world life. Like, you know, like 1.2 on its own doesn't do that, but also being the Scoop champion, what it adds to your resume and all that, like it is a big difference.
It gets your shark scope looking good. The most important.
Yeah.
Sexy shark scope. Blanco Canegro reading the situation pretty well there. Just knowing that Gibbles is probably going to be over 3-betting, which he almost definitely is if he's 3-betting ace-2 suited. Like I very highly doubt that he's like randomizing there and choosing just spades or anything like that. So I think Blanco making a pretty good read.
Did you ever get into that advanced randomizing stuff where you're like, if I want to do it half the time with my suited cards, I'll do it with my red cards, but not with my black cards?
No, I definitely thought about it, and it's not particularly like difficult. I just don't think that it's particularly higher EV. Like people just aren't exploiting you. As long as you keep your stats looking healthy, I think people aren't going to be exploiting you if you're using some days using too many combos. Because the way I would balance it is I just like have like a day of the week where I'd be like, I feel like playing really aggressive today. Pump up the dubstep, play ridiculous percentage of hands, 3-bet a bunch, and then get my like other people would have hands against me and my stats would get ludicrous. And then some other days it would be the complete opposite, and I would I play completely tight, and I just always make sure that my stats on average were still looking fine. But then it would also allow me to play exploitatively against some people and not have to limit myself to saying, oh, I want to 3-bet this guy. Nah, nuts.
Talk about this 9 of spades on the river here.
Yeah, it's masturbatory stuff, isn't it? so pretty juicy. I'm very surprised that he doesn't bet the river, and I think it's I guess I'm not that surprised, but it's a pretty standard thing of like someone that hasn't quite understood ranges too much, where they're near the bottom of their range, but because their hand is still the best hand a bunch of the time, they end up checking. So he ends up having a really, really strong betting range, if that makes sense. So he doesn't have the bluffs, like the bottom pair turned into a bluff. So when he does bet, you can take out a lot of the hands he's supposed to have. I went pretty big on the river there because I want to polarize myself there against an average reg, or someone that I perceive as average. I'm not saying he is average, but I perceived him as average at the time. And a big size there polarizes myself and gives me very few value combos, where I could have a potentially fuckload of bluffs if I turn like ace jack into a bluff, ace queen into a bluff, hands like that.
And for people who are watching who are a little bit new with ranges and GTO and all that stuff, what Charlie's getting at, he's saying, you know, if you want to have a certain bluffing range on the river, you want to use your weakest hands to do that with, because those are the ones that benefit most from getting your opponent to fold. The weaker your hand is, the less often it's going to win, the more it benefits from the times where you can get your opponent to fold their hand by betting. And so we just want to take all those hands. Yeah, he had 5th pair or whatever, but it's probably not going to win at showdown. It's probably going to win more often by bluffing than it is by check.
Yeah, kind of. It's also just the concept that even if his hand is good, say like 40 to 60% of the time, by using one of his worst hands possible in that situation to check, he's playing quite a face-up strategy. So when he does bet, in that kind of situation, he's going to have not many bluffs, because he's not using that selection of hands to bluff with, and he's going to have a lot more value bets. And I think that even though obviously I don't play against him enough to exploit him specifically, it's just a huge tendency in those kind of situations that I've found for like not great professionals to use. Here with jacks, I wanted to 3-bet because instead of shove, because I want to give him a chance to 4-bet shove hands a lot worse than mine, like deuces through 7s, which he might fold. He might call 7s, but deuces through 6s for sure. So I think 3-betting to induce hands like jacks there is good. Even though you risk like getting peeled by like king queen, it's still worth it overall, I think. 3-bet for value. See if the kick takes this spot. Be a ace jack off of there would be a pretty good hand to 3-bet, especially versus European, I think, who's going to be opening quite a bit wider than other people. Never mind. Oh, the heart starts beating. Actually, my heart wasn't racing that much that day. Apart from that time I ran to Starbucks. We'll get to that. Oh, it's this hand. Okay, this is a pretty interesting one. We'll go over it. So when Oddodson just calls the button there, he has a bunch of hands like he has in his range. Like he can have suited broadways, maybe some like ace 9 suited that you choose not to 3-bet. Ace 10 suited potentially. He also has aces reasonably often. I'm not sure if he'd ever flat kings there, but I think he'd always flat aces there. So on this board, I'm going to be checking my whole range. It's the same kind of thing. Like it really smashes his range. Like the king and the queen together when so much of his range is broadways. Super good. Super. I don't know, in his ballpark. So yeah. when it goes check and the turn's a king, it really decreases the chance that he has a king. Because can we pause it for a second?
Yep.
So first of all, it decreases the chance he has a king because there's one fewer kings in the deck. Second of all, it decreases the chance he has a king because most of his kings would bet the flop for value. So at this point, I was pretty happy with my hand. When he calls the turn, that generally puts his range, in my opinion, it put his range at maybe a trapped king queen, then some queen jack, queen 10 suiteds, some spades potentially, like ace 10 of spades if you decide to check back the flop with that, ace jack of spades. His hand, and jack 10 of spades for sure. His hand for sure should be folding the turn though. And this is one of the things where I actually got quite a few messages about this hand being like, how did you fold? You have one of the best hands you can have in this situation. It's like, first of all, I don't. That's not true. I play all of my king X like this. Actually, that's not true. I play some of my king X like this and play aces like this and other hands. Play pocket queens like this. Second of all, so that we can play now. The hand goes, I check and he bets. And a lot of people are just like, how can you fold? But he just really can't have any bluffs because basing it on the premise that his hand should definitely be a fold on the river, on the turn, sorry. It just doesn't make any sense for him to have a bluff there. I actually got a message from Pads about this hand, and it was quite nice because he was like, why did you take so long to fold on the river? Which is quite nice because it was at the same time as I got like 3 other people saying, how did you fold? You got to trust Pads to be good at poker, you know. So it's good validation there.
Yeah, that was a good thing that Scotty Ball taught me. He's like, when someone tells you something, look at the source of where it's coming from. And if you trust the source, trust the message. If you don't trust the source, completely disregard it.
I mean, maybe a bit too much appealing to authority there, but yeah, I can agree with the general tendency of doing that. So yeah, there I obviously took like, we're playing it a bit faster than it was actually in real time, but I probably took like 15 seconds, and Pat's is like, how do you take that long? Like, come on. The reason I did is because the sizing just didn't feel right to me. I felt like he would go bigger with a flush and potentially bigger with a king as well. And you can actually look into that kind of stuff when you're playing a PLO player specifically. Charles Darwin, they're opening a bit bigger, which I don't think's that good, to be honest, but everyone has their own strategies and no one knows the right answer, so it's fine. The Queen Six suited as a big stack is a must open, so I think a bunch of people watching this probably aren't opening that if they're a big stack on a final table, but for sure should be. Oddson, you have the Rockets there. It's Connor Drynan asking Oddson if he had pocket aces. And yeah, I was pretty confident I made a good fold as well.
Well, clearly you made a good fold. Good things are coming.
I made a I made a bad read in the chat as well. Got leveled by Odd Dodson. So yeah, it's all around pretty embarrassing hand for me and now also Connor. He got us.
Yeah, save your reading abilities for the live arena.
I mean, like, you can get some pretty good reads in tournament poker online, but I don't know, man. He tricked me with the turn float.
Those Omaha players don't like folding blockers.
Yeah.
I actually quite like what you were saying earlier about maintaining your stats but switching the theme day by day. Because back in the day, when I lived with Greg, we had a thing where we'd have 3-bet Thursday, 4-bet Friday, solid play Saturday.
This with Greg.
Yeah, you build up your stats on Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, you just play solid and collect the money.
Must have been so good way back when.
Yeah. Although I think it was a lot of the time that we were putting in and the level of effort, Greg especially, because when I watched you play at PCA that first year, it took me back to those years and it looked the same, even though the games had gotten tougher because of the level of effort you were putting in, the skill gap you'd created between you and the others. It looked like you were playing online poker from back.
Thanks, man. It's really funny that the Jack 3 suited hand apparently is just a hand that people go mental with in the big blind in this specific situation. And I don't want to say who told me that. It's one of the best players in the world told me that. And it was just after I'd punted big blind versus cutoff on a bubble with Jack 3 suited by 3-betting. And I was like, wow, it really does make people go mental for some reason. I think it's just because it's one of those hands that's doesn't feel quite good enough to defend, but you don't want to fold it because it's suited Jack. So it's fuck it. And gets one through Garen, and you can see he really doesn't like folding. People are choosing, in my opinion, not the best spots to 3-bet. The old Garenator. The kick here should probably be 3-betting to call a shove. It's too many bigs to shove. No good. No bueno.
So the problem with his 3-bet shove is he's just forcing Maroon Lime to fold the hands that could get him way behind, right?
Maroon Lime might be able to shove a suited ace, might be able to shove deuces or something. I remember this as well. People played weird this whole final table. That just call there is pretty weird. That is really weird. Obviously, I have to defend the big blind. There are not many good flops looking back in hindsight, so I'm pretty glad that I missed. Unless it's the old ace queen 10, it's not looking so bueno.
Yeah.
Do I remember correctly? Does he check this? Or does he check the turn? So, something weird goes on post flop as well. And it's just a lot of... Yeah, okay, must be the turn. Odd Oddson, I think... I don't know why he doesn't do something different here. It just doesn't make too much sense to me. He just has such a huge range advantage. See, Darwin doesn't have any hands better than 10s, maybe 9s. He should not have jacks, and he definitely isn't going to have 5s, 4s, or 3s. So it doesn't make much sense to me to, I don't know, play so snug.
So do you think this would have been a better spot for Odd Oddson to just barrel aggressively, given that he has the range advantage and he can turn backdoor flush draws, overcards, wheels, all those things?
I actually rethinking that. Maybe I actually agree with his check. I think I take it back. I think that he has the best hands too much, and he doesn't really want to get it in versus me. I don't know. It's close. I'm not sure. See Darwin though, for sure should have gone for 2 streets at some point. But yeah, it's a really close one because he kind of doesn't want to bet call against me, but he doesn't want to bet me shoving him have to call. But also that doesn't happen too often because I don't want to get it in versus aces. So it's a tricky one. Plus, my range is pretty high card heavy because I was so short out of the big blind. So yeah, I'm going back. I'm going with the original thought. I think he should see that. But other than that, Charles Darwin should for sure be getting 2 streets of value there. It's kind of ludicrous that he didn't. European checking back there. I don't like it. I don't see any reason why, to be honest. But once he does check that the flop, checking back the turns are pretty good. Induce some bluffs, and that is a pretty ridiculous bluff from Garen, to be honest. He's trying to fold out ace high, like ace kings and like a hand like tens maybe. They're not going to fold to that size. So don't know what's going on there.
Like if he's going to bet, he might as well bet bigger. I feel like he bluffed because he's taken the good odds pre-flop. His opponent's shown no interest, so why not take a shot? But probably should risk a little more.
Yeah, I agree. He just doesn't put too much thought into it. He's just he's a player.
Yeah, I think they call them button clickers.
I think I might fall into that category as well, but yeah, pretty much.
Highly proficient button clicker. Yeah. I think button clickers are the ones who are very instinctual and very good with the feels.
The overbet. I'm not sure about Connor's just call as well. Like he didn't put too much thought into that. I get why he did it. Like he even though he beat some of Garen's value hands, probably most of his value hands, he might if Connor shoves, he might only call with hands better. But then because it's Garen, he might just like bet call like Queen 10, you know. He's pretty mental. So I think a lot more thought should have gone into that one.
Is there also the possibility that the extra 1.5 million he could win on the times that it works is not worth the extra 1.5 million that he could lose, given that it's the final table and given that there is a little bit more of a premium based or valued on survival at this point?
Yeah, I think that'll be one of his main thought processes as well. Just that ICM is a thing and he wants his chip preservation and things like that. But again, I just think you should put more thought into it at least. Because when you think in terms of like combos wise, there are so many more hands that you beat instead of hands that beat you. So I would assume that it's better to shove the river in Connor's spot. I wouldn't be surprised if it's better to just call, but I also don't think that anyone's capable of making that decision in like 5 seconds. I don't think Connor's the kind of person to get taken in by emotion too much, but I do think there's a situation maybe where he did, where he just like doesn't want to take a high variance spot on the final table.
Yeah. I feel like emotionally Connor is pretty rock solid. I saw him immediately after he busted the one drop with the aces versus aces. Oh yeah. And I was like, hey Connor, how's it going? He's like, good man, just busted one drop. I'm gonna go play the 5K right now. And I had no idea what had happened. I was just like, okay, that's a grinder right there. And like he was in good spirits. He's just all about the math and finding the spots and not getting shaken by anything.
Connor's pretty good at the live tells bit as well, I think.
Yeah. Connor is extremely good, extremely talented. And he's been like that since I've known him, which I think is about 4 years, and probably before that as well.
Guys, it's so annoying playing against people. Everyone that plays the high rollers has basically played for like 8 years at least. And there's just like, even Fedor was playing when he was underage. You know, there's just like probably me and Adrian, the new kids, and that's it.
Yeah.
I really like this bet from the kick.
Why do you like this bet right now?
Because Charles Darwin just always has ace high, pretty much, or king high or whatever. I don't think people are particularly balanced on final tables in these kind of situations, and he just gets a free roll bluff. And he can bet really thin for value there as well.